those of you who were kind enough to take a look and a listen to my first video in this sequence may imagine that in the little theatre where I was desperately speaking of something, of theatre in general, in order to placate and keep amused an audience who, like us, the author, director, and cast of the play about to premiere that evening, who were all waiting for a crucial actor who was playing Cervantes, Miguel de Cervantes, in the play, to arrive after his unfortunate brush with the traffic police. So I would have been 15 minutes in, thinking, oh help, how much longer have I got to talk? And I would probably have moved on to Greece, and although there must have been many intervening possibilities, and even more ancient than Egypt, was it possible that outside the caves of Stone Age man, that our early ancestors said to one of the great hunters, act it out again for us, that the famous ambush of the mammoth. I'm supposing that our hunters came back from a famous triumph over a woolly mammoth, in which they said, and it was like this: Fred went round the back and Bill came to the front and Gus shouted over my shoulder and I put in the spear. And they would have said, do it again, I want to see it, act it out again. And maybe it was the longest running show of its time, the killing of the woolly mammoth. But maybe not. In any case, in Greece, we're told, we like to imagine, there was a man called Thespis. Whether there was or not, we don't really know, but much is attributed to him. And Aristotle himself claims that Thespis was the first person to put on costume and pretend to be somebody else, officially, and for people's entertainment. I think we could imagine, and then he was supposed to have traveled around Greece with his costumes and props in a cart, an ox cart perhaps, traveling from city to city with his one-man performances. But I think that we could suppose that the village community would get together every year at the harvest to join in, let's say, the threshing of the grain. And as they threshed in a more or less circular space, whatever was convenient, flat, with people looking on, well, certainly with a lot of people participating, there would have been threshing brushes, whatever it is that you thresh with, widely distributed, and everyone would thresh or thrash the grain to get the kernels out. And while doing so, it could be presumed that songs were sung. Activities like this, like raising the sail on ancient ships, rhythmic activities, almost spontaneously give rise to song. And if we can suppose that there was singing and that it celebrated the village year, maybe it did so in purely formalized fashion, but maybe it became necessary to actually acknowledge what had happened during the year, which maybe was good and bad, and maybe from the leader of the chorus, who was perhaps not doing as much threshing as he was singing and leading the chorus, maybe his account of the year was not felt by everyone to be the sole version, and maybe this protagonist sired, as it were, an antagonist, an alternative view, and there would be a way in which you, as the representative of the community of the village, might say, well, why don't we have both of you sing your version in alternate stanzas? Let's see how that works. This is a very fanciful idea of what somehow, if it happened this way, would have been a very gradual evolution. And certainly, by the time we get to drama itself, in these magnificent auditoria like the Theatre of Dionysus in Athens, there were plenty of others that could hold 10,000 people and more, and were built with such cunning that you could supposedly hear a pin drop at the very top, at the very back. Although actors practiced, we were told of ancient Greek actors practicing at the seashore with a mouthful of pebbles, practicing their diction to make themselves audible. So maybe there was still an issue of intelligibility. So somehow we get ourselves out of what must have been village origins to these magnificent auditoria where the first of the plays that we have, it's said that Thespis himself wrote plays, but that has been disputed, and it's generally held that what are called Thespis' plays are actually later forgeries. When by the time we get to the great founding dramatist Aeschylus, who, like many of his fellow dramatists, was very much a civil citizen, not an artist alone, not just a playwright, and on his grave supposedly he wanted to be remembered as a general, which he was in the wars against the Persians, and not as a playwright at all. Before we get to Aeschylus, there must have been many intermediary stages, but what we reach is a drama which only has the antagonist, the protagonist, and the antagonist, and a chorus representing the original, in my fantasy version of it, the original village community threshing the grain, the corn, as the song was sung, and a kind of chorus, a kind of chant and answer, perhaps, was begun. And it was not until Sophocles that we add another actor, and we gradually, theatre grows into being the recognizable thing that we have now. But it was really very much as we have it now, and in the theatre in Athens, in the Theatre of Dionysus, the back of the stage at which we're looking was a house front with doors, not dissimilar from Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, with something like a house front at the back with a balcony, and with a curtained room down below, where in ancient Athens doors opened upon ghastly scenes, in the case of the murder of Agamemnon and of Clytemnestra. So already in this early stage, we have a chance to ask ourselves, regardless of the true history of theatre, what is the meaning of it? What was it? Why was it so important? In its earliest incarnations at the theatre, at the festival of Dionysus, people came for the 3 days of the festival, and the rest of the year they couldn't say, should we go and see what's showing at the Theatre of Dionysus, because the answer was nothing. It's another night of Chinese takeout food for us. Because the festival itself harbored a series of performances. The playwrights chosen, perhaps by lot or perhaps by a group of judges, offered 3 plays, a trilogy, and this was followed by a full feast play, a satyr play, a comedy, to take your mind off the grisly horrors that had been paraded in front of you in the 3 plays, because it was understood from very early on that the function of theatre, if it had one, was to make a deep dive into the human heart. And this meant confronting the worst of us. Plays from the very first plays have not been much about the best of us. There are good characters and continue to be good characters in theatre today, but they're not very interesting. we need, for the sake of our play of attention, which is drawn by evil, much more than it is by good, although it's true that we have gone to churches of many kinds over the millennia to worship goodness, partly in human form, in the sense that the Buddha and Jesus represent that for us, and partly in divine form. However, the theatre as a secular church holds its audience then as now by showing us the horror of human behavior, the possibilities, dreadful possibilities of how we behave. And again, here it's the effect of portraying human awfulness. It doesn't require a tremendous amount of gore. It's the telling of the story and the gasps of the chorus and the glimpses of what is happening behind those doors at the back of the stage, the glimpses that Cassandra has in the Agamemnon, the opening play of the Oresteia. She can see, because she's a prophetess, what is going on, see and hear, and she screams her reaction to what we know, because she is a true prophetess, to be happening behind those doors. And she, in many ways, arriving as she does as Agamemnon's hostage, a princess of Troy, is the very spirit of theatre. From the beginning, she tells us what we cannot see and restores to us a storytelling of, in many ways, of a primitive Homeric kind, if we suppose a Homer, if there ever was one, or many people, or a she, going from town to town around the ancient Eastern Mediterranean, retelling the story of Troy and its downfall and its many, many deaths on the battlefield, each one very fully and elaborately described by Homer, so that the local hero, whoever they were in the town they were in, got his full due as a victim or as a hero. Cassandra describes to us the offstage horror, and then the doors are opened and we see the lifeless body of the great king Agamemnon, who made the terrible mistake, if indeed we want to call it that, of sacrificing his daughter to get a wind, to go to Troy, to rescue his brother's wife, Agamemnon's sister-in-law Helen, and bring her home, which he succeeds in doing, but the price is great. He has sacrificed the beautiful Iphigenia, and he's not going to be forgiven by his wife. Thus begins the curse, although actually the curse goes back 4 or 5 generations before that, and the task of the playwright, of Aeschylus, is going to be to give us a resolution of these crimes, of the vendetta that is continued, in fact, by Agamemnon in the sacrifice of his daughter, from his parents to their parents to the parents before them. How will we ever end it? And this very serious question is what is answered in the Oresteia. So we have before us a question. Is that what theatre is for? Is its meaning to plumb the worst in man, to see if we can accommodate it, if we can solve the problem it poses to us? Is that our topic as theatre, or will it be many other things as well? More on this very soon. I'm looking up to see the blizzard that is surging through the Mount Overlook wild forest where I live as we speak. But I hope this finds you warm and safe, and I send fond love.